July 20th marked the opening of the Parliament monsoon session in Delhi. While lawmakers gathered inside the center of political power, a much louder confrontation was taking shape just blocks away. The March on Parliament escalated quickly. Heavily deployed police units used water cannons and tear gas to block the path of students attempting to reach the legislative gates, leading to dozens of injuries on both sides. The core of this unrest is a systemic failure in the national examination pipeline. Recent NEET paper leaks have convinced millions of students that the public education system can no longer guarantee a fair future. This street-level friction has transformed the student grievance into a physical mobilization that is actively challenging the national political order. Sonam Wangchuk has become the focal point of this resistance. As he crosses day 23 of a hunger strike from a hospital bed, his visible physical deterioration has given the movement a sense of desperate urgency. Wangchuk's condition acted as a unifying force, bringing together student factions and civil society groups under a single organization, the Cockroach Janta Party, or CJP. Under the weight of this unified pressure, the government has moved away from its reliance on police force and agreed to open direct talks with the movement's leadership. Securing these meetings shifts the battleground from the streets to bureaucratic backrooms, where the movement must now navigate an entirely different set of rules. Official diplomacy began with Government Representative J.P. Nadda meeting twice with CJP leaders in a single afternoon. During these sessions, the administration required the CJP to translate their verbal anger into a formalized written manifesto of demands. The first demand focuses on accountability. The CJP is calling for immediate criminal action against the specific networks that orchestrated the paper leaks. Second, the manifesto calls for systemic reform. This requires new digital safeguards and total transparency in how examinations are handled nationwide. Third, the movement is seeking justice for families impacted by the crisis, specifically a 1 crore rupee compensation for the families of students who committed suicide following the exam failures. These demands occupy a space of negotiable political friction. However, the final point in the manifesto presents a much steeper obstacle for the state. The fourth and most contentious demand is the immediate resignation of Education Minister Dharmender Pradhan. For the current political establishment, removing a cabinet minister under pressure from a grassroots movement is a red line that would signal significant political vulnerability. During the negotiations, the government maintained a cordial tone while signaling they would not immediately accept any of the CJP's points. Instead, the administration deferred to ongoing CBI probes and suggested that the manifesto would be subject to internal consultations rather than immediate executive action. By routing the protesters' urgency into procedural delays and committee reviews, the state effectively began to bleed the kinetic energy out of the movement. Despite the start of these dialogues, Wangchuk has steadfastly refused to end his hunger strike, sensing that the negotiations have yet to produce concrete results. Wangchuk continues his strike as a direct response to the police force used against students during the march, making it clear that he will not back down while the threat of state violence remains. From his hospital bed, he praised the youth protesters for maintaining their discipline and peace, even when provoked, a move that secures the movement's moral standing. By maintaining his physical strike, Wangchuk prevents the government from quietly burying the student grievances in committee. Behind the scenes, the crisis has escalated to the highest levels. Home Minister Amit Shah has begun holding closed-door meetings with the Education Minister to manage the fallout. The administration is now weighing two distinct risks: the potential for prolonged public disorder against the perceived weakness of yielding to the CJP's demands. A peaceful resolution would require a negotiated compromise where both sides can claim a partial victory. However, a flat rejection of the manifesto and a refusal to fire the education minister would likely send the protesters back to the streets immediately. This leaves the two sides in a tense deadlock: a youth movement that refuses to leave the streets, and a state bureaucracy that refuses to move until the pressure subsides.